My son sent me one sentence that ended my entire life as a mother, and I did not reply a single word. The message appeared on my phone on a quiet Tuesday morning, just after I finished washing my coffee mug and set it upside down on the counter. I remember the exact wording because it burned itself into my memory. Do not call me anymore. I am tired of you and your requests. That was it. No greeting, no explanation, no goodbye. I stood in my small kitchen in New York, the city already alive outside my window, horns blaring, footsteps rushing past, life moving forward as if nothing had happened. I read the message again, and then again. My hands did not shake. My chest did not tighten the way I expected. Instead, something inside me went very still. Requests. I whispered the word out loud, testing it. What requests had I ever made of my son? My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 64 years old. I am a widow, a retired accountant, and until that moment, I believed motherhood was permanent, unconditional, unbreakable. I had raised my son Lucas alone after his father died in a construction accident when Lucas was 8. I worked long hours, balancing books for small family-owned businesses, coming home late, eating cold dinners, telling myself it was temporary. Everything I did was for him. Every sacrifice made sense as long as he was okay. So when that message came, I did what I had never done before in my life. I said nothing. I did not respond. I did not call back. I did not send a follow-up text trying to explain or apologize or soften myself into something easier to tolerate. I placed my phone face down on the table and went about my day like a woman learning how to breathe in a new way. The silence that followed was terrifying at first. Days passed, then weeks. My phone stayed quiet. No check-ins, no accidental calls, no messages sent and deleted. I went to my doctor appointments alone. I sat in waiting rooms, surrounded by strangers scrolling through photos of grandchildren, while I stared at the floor. When my test results came back normal, I smiled politely at the nurse and drove myself home. I began to notice things I had ignored for years. How often my house was quiet. How much time I had spent waiting for calls, waiting for visits, waiting to be needed. 8 weeks after that message, my phone rang. Lucas. For a long moment, I stared at his name on the screen. My thumb hovered. Somewhere deep inside me, the old reflex stirred, the instinct to answer no matter what, because that was what mothers did. I answered. Mom. His voice was rushed, breathless. We are in trouble. Vanessa and I are behind on rent. We need money, fast. $2,000 by Friday or we are getting evicted. Can you send it today? No apology, no hesitation, no acknowledgement of the sentence he had used to cut me out of his life. Something settled inside me then, quiet and firm. I am sorry, I said calmly. I do not know who you are. I do not have a son. And before he could speak again, I ended the call. I sat there in my kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand, realizing that whatever came next, there was no going back. Before Lucas became a voice on the phone asking for money, before he became a name that made my stomach tighten, he was a little boy with scraped knees and too many questions. I was 29 when his father died. One moment we were arguing about groceries, and the next I was standing in a hospital hallway in New York, holding a plastic bag with his wallet and watch inside it, being told that a steel beam had slipped and there had been nothing anyone could do. Lucas was 8 years old. He sat beside me on the hard chair, his legs dangling, swinging back and forth because they did not reach the floor yet. He did not cry. He just asked when his dad was coming home. From that day on, everything became about survival. I kept my job as an accountant, working for small, family-owned businesses that paid just enough to keep the lights on. During the day, I balanced ledgers and reconciled numbers. At night, I balanced exhaustion and fear. I learned how to stretch a dollar until it felt thin as paper. I learned how to smile even when my body ached. I learned how to be both parents at once. Lucas never went without. That was my promise to myself. When he needed braces, I took on extra clients. When his school offered a class trip I could not afford, I found a way. When he wanted to apply to colleges outside the state, I told him to dream big and stayed up late filling out paperwork I barely understood. There were nights I sat at the kitchen table with bills spread out like a losing hand, calculating which could wait and which could not. I never told Lucas when I skipped meals. I never told him when I cried in the shower so he would not hear. To him, I was just Mom, steady, reliable, always there. When he graduated college, I cried harder than I had at the funeral. I believed I had done it, that the hardest part was behind us. He got a job. He met Vanessa. He moved out. I told myself that was what success looked like. The requests started quietly. A little help with a security deposit. A short-term loan until his first paycheck cleared. Money for a car repair that could not wait. Each time he promised it was temporary. Each time I said yes without hesitation. When Lucas married Vanessa, I paid for what I could. Not because they asked outright, but because I offered. I wanted to be useful. I wanted to feel included. When they thanked me, it was quick and distracted. But I told myself that was enough. I believed that love meant giving and not keeping score. What I did not see then was how slowly the balance shifted, how conversations became shorter, how visits became rare, how my role quietly changed from mother to resource. I told myself it was normal, that children grow up, that independence looks like distance, that I should be proud he did not need me anymore. But the truth was simpler and harder. He did not need me as a mother. He needed me as a solution. And I had spent decades teaching him that I would always be one. I did not notice the moment when love began to feel like duty. It did not arrive suddenly. It crept in quietly, disguised as concern, as responsibility, as what a good mother was supposed to do. Lucas stopped calling just to talk. When my phone rang, there was always a reason now. Rent had gone up. Vanessa needed dental work. Their car had broken down on the way to work. There was always urgency in his voice, always a deadline that made saying no feel cruel. I sent the money before he finished explaining. Sometimes he promised to visit soon. Sometimes he said we would have dinner together once things calmed down. Most of the time the call ended quickly, as if once the problem was solved, there was nothing left to say. Weeks would pass in silence. I told myself that was normal. Young couples were busy, Life was expensive. I remembered how hard it had been when Lucas was small, how one unexpected bill could throw everything into chaos. I told myself I was helping him build stability. I told myself this was temporary. It never was. One winter, Lucas asked if I could co-sign a loan so they could renovate their apartment. He said it would increase the value. He said it was an investment. I hesitated for the first time in years. Not because I did not trust him, but because something in my chest felt heavy and wrong. I signed anyway. I did not tell my friends. I did not tell my sister. I knew what they would say, that he was grown, that I was risking too much, that I deserved to rest. I did not want to hear it. I wanted to believe that helping my son was still the right thing to do. Holidays came and went. Thanksgiving dinners I cooked for two turned into meals for one when Lucas canceled at the last minute. Christmas mornings were quiet. Birthday cards I mailed were never acknowledged. When I hinted that I missed him, he said I was being emotional. "You know I love you, Mom. Things are just busy right now." Busy enough to ask for money. Too busy to sit with me for an hour. Vanessa rarely spoke to me directly. When she did, her tone was polite but distant, as if I were a neighbor rather than family. I sensed she did not like me, but I blamed myself for that too. Maybe I hovered. Maybe I gave too much advice. Maybe I expected too much. So I pulled back in every way except the one that mattered. I kept giving. Every time my bank balance dipped, I felt a flash of fear followed by relief. Fear for myself. Relief that I had fixed another problem for him, that I was still useful. I did not see that I was teaching him something dangerous, that my love was endless and unconditional, yes, but also limitless, that there would always be more money, more forgiveness, more understanding. By the time the requests became demands, by the time irritation crept into his voice when I asked how he was doing, the pattern was already set. I was no longer his mother in his mind. I was a safety net he had learned to lean on without looking down. And I was the only one who did not realize how close I was to tearing apart. The call that changed everything did not begin as a fight. It was a gray afternoon in early spring, the kind of day where the city feels heavy, clouds pressing low, the air thick with unspoken things. I had just returned from a doctor's appointment, my mind still buzzing with medical words and what-ifs. The tests were routine, the doctor had said, but routine did not feel comforting when you were alone. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my phone for a long time before dialing. I did not need money. I did not need help. I did not need anything at all. I just wanted to hear my son's voice. Lucas answered on the third ring. I knew immediately that he was annoyed. There was a sharpness in his breathing, as if I had interrupted something important. "Mom, what is it now?" The words stung, but I pushed through them. I told myself not to be sensitive. "I just wanted to talk," I said. "I have not heard from you in a while." "I am in the middle of something," he replied. "Make it quick." I felt small then, smaller than I had felt in years. Still, I tried. "I had some tests done today," I began. "The doctor says everything is probably fine, but I just thought I should tell you." There was a pause. Not concern, not worry, just impatience. "Mom, seriously, I do not have time for this." For this? As if my voice, my fear, my existence were an inconvenience on his schedule. I reminded him softly that I was his mother, that I was not asking for anything, that I only needed a minute. That was when he said it. "Do not call me anymore. I am tired of you and your requests." The sentence landed with a dull finality, like a door slamming shut in a quiet room. Requests. I opened my mouth to speak, to defend myself, to ask what he meant, but the line went dead. He had already hung up. I sat there with the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. Around me, the apartment looked the same as it always had. The same table, the same chair, the same framed photos on the wall. Lucas at 5 years old, missing his front teeth. Lucas at his college graduation, smiling